Tony's right. What's up? So this is gonna be my like week 2 kind of like wrap up. These weeks are fucking flying by. I knew this semester. I knew this semester was gonna go by. I knew it. So, um, I am here to talk about week 2, but also first workshop. So week 2 went by fast because week 1 went by fast. I was like, damn, we at the end of the week. But I think it's because I don't have any gaps in between classes, meaning like I have classes 3 days a week, one after the other. So I don't have to wait. Like I have a Monday class and then I gotta wait until Friday. Like I have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I have all of those days, and it's one class a piece. And literally in that block, I have all my shit. You know what I'm saying? So I like the last few semesters. I feel like I've had like a day in between like other classes, and now it's just like they all roll together. And once I'm done, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday are all my days that I can do the work. Which girl, don't do not too much on me. But yeah, like the first week and the second week they rolled by fast. So the first week was just getting acclimated. I had to read, man, we had to read Dog Day Afternoon, the script, and then like the book talking about like the more technical aspects of story and narrative arc and inciting incident, things like that, because it's screenwriting. We're getting into like the technical stuff, being able to identify different parts within a screenplay, right? So the crisis, the climax, resolution, identifying protagonists, antagonists, subplots, sub-themes, things like that. Like, I think if you are interested in like fiction and literature and stuff like that, like identifying that kind of stuff, it's cool. So that's the first week. So we had to read Dog Day Afternoon, which pissed me off at the end because I was like, damn, homie. Because I've never seen Dog Day Afternoon. I know what it's about because like I've watched like TV shows that talked about what it was about. But like, I ain't like that ending. And I noticed that my expectations as a watcher and a reader is I like very neatly resolved, neatly wrapped and packaged type of things. I do not like unresolved things, which is why I don't like things like unsolved mysteries, and I don't like shit like Dateline, especially when they be like the episode just ends on a just ends open, like the case is open. I don't like shit like that because I'm just like we gotta solve it. Like, what do you mean like this shit is unresolved? What do you mean it's unresolved? What do you mean it's like open ended? What do you mean? And it's so funny because I like to keep a lot of things open-ended, but not when it comes to shit like that. Not like I like things resolved. Like one of the movies some of the movies that I watched, and it's so funny, I'm attracted to movies like this that like are never resolved, that don't be resolved. Like Blue is the Warmest Color, Tu Mamá También, Parasite, even like none of these things are like fully resolved. Like they're resolved on screen, but the actual stories themselves, if you think about it, they're not resolved. Like, bro, like what? So it was very fascinating to kind of like start to realize that about myself, and to kind of be like, girl, you have some problems. But to like kind of like start to think about the expectations of the reader and the expectations of the visual, like the watching audience, that like these may be some of the expectations that they have. And even in my like second class, so I roll into that, my second class when we're reading a book a week, like the expectations from the different audiences, because we read The Vegetarian, which I might do a small little review. I think I might want to do a video on all of the books that we read and just kind of go through them and what I learned and shit like that. I'm trying to get more into like book reviews and just talk about shit. But like one of the things about that class, because we read The Vegetarian, like I said, was that the author explains, I love listening to commentary by the author and like musicians and stuff like that, when they make their novel, or they make their like album. I love behind the scenes commentary on how shit came to be and the conceptualization. I love shit like that because it gives me so much context into like what they were going for, that like sometimes I be missing. Excuse me over there. The context is like a bag or whatever, but the context of like where, like, what they were going through and what they were going for when they were writing. And so listening to the author of The Vegetarian was very interesting, because the initial plot was like the lady turned into a plant, but that's not how the book ended up being written officially. It was kind of like a woman essentially turns into a more vegetative state by becoming a vegetarian, but not necessarily just turning into a plant. And the idea of translation being particularly contentious for like the integrity of a book, and how like audiences, global audiences, depending on where you are, have different expectations of what they are looking for when it comes to the book, and the critiques that can arise because you are from a different part of the world. Like we talked about how on the Korean side, the Korean media really questioned the book's translation and the book's translator, because they felt like the authenticity was somehow like degraded and ruined, because it wasn't a one-for-one exact kind of copy language wise for the book. Like certain things got changed, like maybe her, like I think one of the examples was like their arm did this, and then the translation was like their foot did this, which I understand that, but then we were reading about arguments that like you're really not going to ever translate anything one for one, which is very true. Like I think people forget, like some languages, when I like explore learning languages in college, some languages have preoccupations with certain concepts, and you really don't understand that until you like really go to communicate. Like some languages have a preoccupation with like family and familial ties and place in society, versus some languages, they have a preoccupation with like maybe materiality, so different materials, what it's made of, etc., and stuff like that. Like some languages have a whole bunch of ways to to make a verb. Some are very simple with it, like their sentence structure is not concerned with shit like that. Things like that. And so that that wasn't necessarily what they were getting into, but like that's what I noticed with language. Like some languages are very preoccupied with certain things, and I think it kind of highlights kind of the societal values a little bit, or what it has value, because these languages are like hundreds if not thousands years old, but like the argument was that a translator really isn't looking to translate word for word. They're trying to translate the actual feeling and the context of it. And if they have to shift something a little bit to do that, then they should be able to take that liberty to do it. And I agree to a certain extent with that. I don't think you should be like far out there, right, to where if this is about to be about like someone deciding to I hate using these words, but unalive themselves, then I think that that sentiment and that context and that vibe is going to have to be replicated. I don't think that the translation is going to the translation can't omit that, So that's what we learned, or what we were working through in the second class. The third class was thesis. It's my workshop class. So we are doing like a poem a week or something like that. I've made the charge to do 2 poems a week, only because by the end of the semester, we'll have about 3/4 of the work that we need done for our actual thesis book. And then we'll go into spring having completed essentially the rest, and we'll go into like making the actually editing the collection and making the so essentially I don't want to have to do a bunch of shit on the back end in the wintertime, so I kind of want to just bump up the writing, right? So we had our first round of workshops. What I noticed, I need to get better at being able to articulate what I am thinking, and I think part of that is that I just don't read everything that I think about or everything that I'm considering. I am very much a mood kind of person and a vibes. I'm on the vibes wave of thinking when it comes to editing, and I think because this is thesis year, I have to actually get into the idea of craft and the idea of like not necessarily like always going over shit with a fine-tooth comb, but like looking at things from a technical perspective and what is working, what is not, and not just vibes, because that's where I am. I'm a vibes kind of person. And so yeah, like doing that, I got feedback from my poems, and it's like, okay, this feedback, no, but like I think for me, like a lot of my poetry, because I was talking about my frustrations, we had to do Ars Poetica, and the route that I took for Ars Poetica, the reactions to it were kind of more like there seems to be like resentment and frustration, and in my mind I was kind of like, yes, but that's like I experiment with my poems. Like some poems are they're not very personal, but they're about things that I think about that are relating to myself, which is personal. And then there's some times where I'm exploring an actual concept and I'm making a speaker explore that world, explore that concept, right? Like I'm not the driver, but I've created the driver, you know? So it's kind of like, that's where it is. And I think sometimes in workshops with my poetry, people they think that every poem that I'm making is 100% about myself, and it's like just not. Like it's from me and like some things I'm thinking about, but I kind of always am like, you know, the person that I came in the door as was like, yeah, it's so deep, it's so this, and it's all these layers, and it's like, no, I'm just experimenting. Like that's literally what like some of this shit is. It's just experimenting, and if it works and y'all, you know, rock with it, cool. And if you give me feedback and say this shit needs to be totally rewritten, that's cool too. Like I don't think people understand how little I really be caring. Like sometimes I just want to get this shit done. I just want to turn this bitch in. That's it. And because the thing for me is that my portfolio never looks the exact same way anyway. So to me, it's like I already know. Like my professor already like should know by now. Like every packet I'm giving you, there's like if it's 10 poems in there, like 8 of them has been completely redone. Like they may hit the same topic, but they're completely redone. So it's kind of like, peace. I'm not worried about this. But it's kind of fascinating to like hear the critiques and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. Like, yeah, it's whatever. Like, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because it's the first week that we were doing like around the workshop and stuff like that. It does make me feel like I need to be a little bit more serious about it and intentional about it though. And that is something that I'm contemplating because I really just, like I said, I don't want to get to the end of the semester and have to like do all this back end work during my break when I want to like fucking relax. You know, like when I want to relax, I want to relax. Like when I'm done school, like I'm usually like almost like 2 full months of like not working. I mean working, but like working, but kind of more like just day-to-day stuff. Like I'm not, you know, I want to just be able to focus on like the next steps, like when I like finish this, you know. I just don't want to be like, because I can just see how somebody who like doesn't take it seriously ends up with a whole bunch of shit that they have to like do, and then like people are just like, oh, like it's so much. It's like, no shit, like no shit, you didn't do anything. Like, of course this shit is gonna pile up on you, you will feel like, oh my god, like everything is coming at me all at once. Of course, like you didn't do anything. So I want to be as proactive as possible, and I just think also it'll make me a better writer to actually write. I do want to get a craft book though. I'm thinking about getting that because I feel like I would like to learn more about craft. I think because I came into poetry kind of like later, and I feel like I always wanted to be more of a fiction writer. It's kind of interesting that I settled into poetry, and yeah, I want to dive deeper into poetry, and like not just the different types of poems and stuff like that. Like I want to dive deep into kind of what is poetry doing, how are we crafting it, not necessarily rules, do's and don'ts, but just how are we crafting it and how are we talking about it in a way that helps the writer create better, because we have elements of style for like writing, but like for poetry, is there an elements of style-esque kind of book? Like I think that's my book hunter kind of moment that I want to like embrace, like finding that and then like going from there, and just different examples of different kinds of like poems and stuff like that, different types of poems, because it's like types of poems I never like learned about. I didn't know, what is it, Villanelle? Like I didn't know that shit till I got to this program. Like, you know about the song, you learn about the sonnet and you learn about the haiku and shit like that, but you don't really learn, at least in my education, I didn't really learn too much outside of that. And I wasn't really the part of my life where I was doing other stuff. I wasn't exploring it either. So when I came to the program, it was like I need to catch up. So yeah, I would like to find books on that, and I think that's also going to help me because I think I'll be able to understand why it works and what's doing it. And then also reading all of these books and stuff like that, I think is informing how I write and think about writing and how I approach writing. I think I'm going to do another video after this, so I'm going to end this one because I'm going to talk about entry points in poetry and how that's becoming a very big fascination of mine. So thank you for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.